In this video, we're going to take a basic look at every single weapon that's going to be available for New World at release. Weapons in New World either have one main stat that they scale from, and it scales at a 1x ratio, or they have two stats, a primary and a secondary. The primary will scale at a 0.9x, and the secondary will scale at a 0.65x. The sword and shield scales off strength as a main stat with dexterity as a secondary stat. It is essentially your classic sword and board choice. The sword master talent trees focus mainly around damage output. It has like an AoE swing and a leaping strike, whereas the defender talent tree is essentially your tanking tree. It has a stun and a knockback. Right clicking with this will block with the shield. The Great Axe is a two-handed weapon that scales purely off strength. Right clicking with these simply just block with the whole weapon. The Reaper talent tree is more your single target DPS where you charge in and then execute. And the Mauler talent tree is more your AoE swirling big old axe. The Warhammer is also a two-handed weapon and also scales purely off strength. The Juggernaut talent tree is more your DPS focus and breaking people's armor, whereas the Crowd Crusher is more about the crowd control and stuns. The Hatchet is a one-handed weapon that scales off strength mainly and then dexterity. The Berserker talent tree is all about going ham with the Berserk buff and just get it in there and swinging as fast as you can. The Throwing talent tree adds a ranged option to the weapon and some corresponding abilities. The Musket is a long-ranged gun that scales off dex mainly and then intelligence secondary. When you right click with the musket, it will actually like zoom in and aim. The Sharpshooter talent tree is all about the single shot power, whereas the Trapper talent tree adds some versatility like a trap slow and an AoE bomb. The bow is your classic bow and arrow, and it scales purely off dex. It's the same thing. If you right click, you will in fact zoom in and aim. The Skirmisher talent tree here is the more versatile spec. It gives you an evade and an AoE, while the Hunter talent tree is more focused on single target damage, except for Splinter Shot. The Rapier is basically the weapon that fencers use, and it scales here off dex mainly and intelligence secondary. The Blood talent tree gives you bleed effects that you can put on the enemy, and Grace is more your stylish choice where you want to outplay your opponent. Evade gives you like a quick dodge, and the Riposte gives you a counter stun. The Spear scales primarily off dexterity and secondary strength. The Zoner talent tree keeps your enemies at a spear's length distance. It gives you Javelin so you can throw your spear at the enemy, but it also gives you Sweep and Cyclone, which are AoE CCs. Impaler is mostly about DPS and bleeds, but Vault Kick can be pretty good for knocking the enemies down. The Fire Staff will shoot out fireballs as its normal left click. It scales purely off intelligence, and it blocks normally, I believe, just by holding up the stick. The Fire Mage talent tree is more about your single target DPS, but Meteor Shower actually does give you some AoE damage. Pyromancer is perhaps slightly more AoE focused and a little bit more versatile with the Flame Charge and Incinerate crowd control. The Ice Gauntlet scales purely off intelligence. Now when you right click with the Ice Gauntlet, I believe it puts up like a magical shield, which is just something to note quickly. The Ice Tempest is more about your DPS and slows. The Builder talent tree is more your versatility. There's a pillar totem that essentially does DPS over time, as well as a slow and a classic ice block. The Life Staff will shoot out bolts of nature damage, but it is basically your healing weapon. It's the only weapon that scales off focus, and the Healing talent tree is all about pure healing output, both single target and AoE. Whereas the Protector talent tree, whilst it still heals, it is more about giving buffs to friendlies and actually sometimes doing a little bit of damage, which then also buffs and heals your team. If you want to see more New World content, then do subscribe, and if you like this video, press like. Have a most beautiful day. Goodbye.